Imagine this, a billionaire speaking in Arabic, surrounded by the most powerful people in the room. But instead of any one of them responding, only the black maid steps up, silencing the entire crowd with a single, bold reply. What happens next will shock you and change the way you see power, respect, and standing up in the face of the unexpected. Stay tuned, because this story is unlike anything you've ever heard before. It was an evening that started just like any other. The grand ballroom of the Ritz-Carlton shimmered with opulence, filled with guests draped in designer suits and dazzling gowns. The rich and powerful had gathered, mingling and exchanging pleasantries, their voices a low hum of luxury and ambition. The room buzzed with excitement as people eagerly anticipated the speeches, the networking, and the evening's celebrations. Yet, none of them could have predicted the extraordinary turn of events that would soon unfold. At the front of the room, standing tall with an air of undeniable authority, was Khalid al-Mansour. The billionaire tycoon from the Middle East was a figure of legend. His wealth, vast beyond imagination, had made him a force to be reckoned with. Even the wealthiest people in the room, accustomed to power, respected him. His reputation was built not only on his fortune, but on his ability to command a room with his mere presence. Tonight, however, was different. While most would expect him to speak in English, the global language of business, Khalid chose to speak in his native Arabic. His voice was calm yet carried a weight of authority that demanded attention. The audience, momentarily confused, grew silent, their curiosity piqued by what would unfold next. The audience was stunned. There, in the heart of one of the most cosmopolitan cities in the world, a billionaire stood in front of a crowd of powerful people, many of whom couldn't understand a word he was saying. The room fell into a tense silence. The only sound that could be heard was the faint rustling of dress shoes and the awkward shifting of uncomfortable guests. Some of the attendees exchanged nervous glances, unsure how to react. A few leaned over to their neighbors, whispering softly, trying to guess what was being said. Others pulled out their phones, searching for translation apps or looking for a way to get a quick interpretation. But it was clear they didn't know what was happening. As the billionaire continued speaking, the tension grew. This wasn't just any foreign language. It was a language few in the room understood. The silence deepened, like a thick cloud settling over the crowd. For the first time, a billionaire had made everyone feel like outsiders. They were no longer in control of the situation, and it was unnerving. Just as the tension in the room reached a boiling point, something unexpected and almost surreal happened. The audience, on edge and filled with murmurs of confusion, was suddenly interrupted by a voice from the back. It was soft at first, but as it echoed across the room, its clarity and confidence became undeniable. "Excuse me, Mr. Al-Mansur, would you like me to translate for the room?" The voice cut through the awkward silence like a hot knife through butter, and everyone froze. All eyes turned to the woman who had spoken. To their surprise, it wasn't a high-ranking official or a prominent guest, but Amina, the hotel maid. She was dressed in a simple black dress and apron, standing in stark contrast to the elegant crowd around her. She appeared almost invisible to most of them, just another face among the service staff. But what caught everyone off guard wasn't her attire or position, it was her calm and composed demeanor. How could she know Arabic, let alone understand the billionaire's speech? She hadn't been near the front when Khalid began. Unbeknownst to the guests, Amina was no ordinary maid. She was multilingual, fluent in Arabic, a skill she had mastered growing up in North Africa. She wasn't just a maid, she was a woman with quiet intelligence and remarkable poise.
ChatGPT said, just when it seemed like the tension in the room would break, something entirely unexpected happened. The murmurs began to grow louder, the discomfort palpable, when suddenly a voice rang out from the back. It wasn't loud or shrill, but it was clear, confident, and calm. "Excuse me, Mr. El-Mansur, would you like me to translate for the room?" The room froze.
Every head turned toward the source of the voice, and the faces in the crowd were filled with surprise and confusion. The voice belonged to none other than Amina, the maid who worked at the hotel. She was a woman in her mid-30s, dressed in a simple black dress and apron, effortlessly blending in with the service staff. Most guests had never even noticed her before. She was just part of the invisible backdrop that made the luxurious evening run smoothly. But Amina's words shattered the silence like a bolt of lightning. How could she possibly understand Arabic? She hadn't been standing near the front when Khalid began speaking, and the guests had no idea she had any knowledge of the language. What they didn't know was that Amina wasn't just any maid. She was known for her quiet intelligence, her remarkable poise, and the fact that she was fluent in several languages, including Arabic, a skill she had honed growing up in North Africa, which she had carried with her into adulthood. Amina's offer to translate wasn't merely an act of courtesy, it was a subtle assertion of authority that transformed the entire atmosphere. The moment her voice cut through the tension, the room fell into a charged silence. Conversations died mid-sentence. Chairs stopped creaking. Every head turned toward her, not out of curiosity, but with an almost reverent alertness. No one had expected the maid, the background presence in crisp uniform, to step forward and command the space with such poise. But she wasn't just stepping forward, she was stepping into a role she clearly knew well. There was no trace of self-doubt, no fumbling or second-guessing. She moved with the composed precision of someone who had long been underestimated, and who had learned how to wield that underestimation to her advantage. As she reached the front of the room, she paused, locking eyes with Khalid. The billionaire's words had faded mid-sentence, his attention now fully on her. That pause, just a heartbeat long, said everything. She wasn't seeking permission. She turned to the audience and began translating with a voice that rang out calm and steady. But it was more than the language. Her voice carried weight, quiet authority, and an almost regal clarity. Amina hadn't just spoken, she'd taken control. By the time Amina finished translating, the entire energy in the room had changed. What had begun as a moment of confusion and imbalance had become something far more profound. Eyes that had once followed Khalid now remained fixed on her. Not out of shock anymore, but admiration. The maid who had stepped forward so calmly, so confidently, had become the quiet center of the evening. She had silenced the room with nothing but her voice, and in doing so, she had upended the unspoken hierarchy that had governed it. When she concluded, there was a moment of stillness, an almost sacred pause, before a slow, respectful applause began. It wasn't thunderous, but it carried a deeper weight. It was the kind of applause reserved not for performance, but for presence. Khalid remained still, his eyes unreadable, his stance no longer dominant but reflective. He knew something had shifted. Amina had done more than translate a speech. She had conveyed something far more universal. She had reminded everyone of the quiet strength in self-possession, of the dignity in being seen. Her message had transcended language. It was about value, visibility, and human worth. And as the evening ended, everyone left with the same quiet certainty. Amina had said more than anyone else, without ever raising her voice. Before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to the Black Visionaries family. Wow, what a powerful story. A reminder that true strength doesn't come from money or titles. It comes from courage, character, and knowing your worth. If this hit home, tap that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Got thoughts? Drop them in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. See you in the next one.